Arya Voss stood at the edge of the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the holographic projection of Gyalith's canyon network. The jagged channels carved into the rust-colored surface seemed almost alive in the display. Each ravine, drooping, with shadows, hinted at depths unexplored and dangers unspoken. She tapped a sequence of coordinates into her wrist console, watching them blink in amber. As one of the Orion Reach Frontier's foremost xenobiologists, Arya had grown accustomed to the lonely frontier research stations that dotted the territories, but this signal was different. The outpost's automated distress beacon had gone online less than an hour ago, its terse message repeating in a loop. Stranded, hostile environment. Request immediate assistance. No name, no explanation, only urgency. She inhaled deeply, tasting the sterile tang of recycled air in her mask. Gyalith was infamous among xenobiologists and unscrupulous speculators alike for its labyrinthine ravines, its bioluminescent spores, and its deadly apex predators. Many who ventured into the canyon's depths never returned, their suits torn, apart by creatures that stalked the darkness. Despite the risks, or perhaps because of them, Arya felt a magnetic pull toward the unknown. She had volunteered for rescue missions before, of researchers, prospectors, survey drones, but nothing had prepared her for what awaited at the canyon's mouth today. Aboard the transport shuttle, Arya reviewed her gear for the third time. Exoshell suit calibrated for extreme terrain, grav hook for rappelling, plasma cutter with freshly calibrated output, and a compact sensor array designed to detect thermal and sonic signatures. She strapped her helmet on, ran a fingertip over the lens's HUD, and activated the infrared overlay. Beyond the viewport, Gyalith's twin suns cast the canyon rim in harsh contrast, bright orange light on the plateau, deep indigo shadows in the chasm below. The shuttle's thrusters flared as it descended and settled on a rocky outcropping just 50 meters from the precipice. The pilot gave her a curt nod through the cockpit's reinforced glass and relayed final instructions. Extraction would be in 40 minutes. Enough time, Arya thought, if she moved quickly. Stepping onto the windswept plateau, Arya felt the sun's heat at her back and smelled the tang of ozone. Beneath her boots, the reddish sand shifted, dust rising in tiny filaments that glowed faintly under ultraviolet light. She slung her grav hook over her shoulder, activated the magnetized stabilizers on her boots, and approached the canyon's edge. From here, the walls plummeted downward in serrated tiers of basalt, each ledge collapsing into the next until the canyon floor disappeared into inky blackness. The air at the rim was dry and warm. Lower down, she could already see faint spirals of mist suggesting moisture and cooler temperatures. Descending, she announced into her comm. The reply crackled back. Be careful. We have limited data on thermal currents today. Arya tapped her HUD to log the warning. As she anchored her harness and secured the safety tethers, she felt a familiar thrill, the delicate balance between control and surrender when one steps into the unknown. She activated the grav hook spool and began her descent. The grappling anchor shot downward, embedding itself in a narrow fissure roughly 30 meters below. With each controlled release of the tether, Arya's boots scraped the jagged rock. She paused for a moment as a gust of wind swept up from the depths, rattling her suit and carrying with it a faint alien odor, like ozone mixed with damp earth and fermented vegetation. Her HUD sensors registered a drop in temperature, from a warm 38 degrees at the rim to a cool 12 degrees 20 meters. Below, the canyon walls glowed faintly with bioluminescent fungi, creating shifting shadows that danced across her visor. After several minutes of careful descent, Arya's boots touched solid ground, the canyon floor. The rocky surface here was layered, in shale and interspersed with pools of phosphorescent water that emitted a sickly green glow. Her HUD's thermal overlay registered no significant heat signatures within a 10-meter radius, but her sonic sensors picked up distant echoes, hollow, rhythmic drips of water, and a low-frequency rumble that could be seismic activity or something else entirely. She activated her flashlight, revealing walls streaked with claw marks, long parallel grooves gouged deep into the basalt. Each mark was nearly a meter long, indicating a creature of immense size and strength. Her pulse quickened. No sign of survivors yet, she whispered into her comm. She advanced toward the clawed ravine wall, following the deepest gouges. As she moved deeper, the air grew damper, and she felt humidity coalesce on her suit's thermoregulation panels. Phosphorescent spores carpeted the walls and floor, releasing faint motes of glowing particles whenever her boots displaced them. The spores recoiled from her light, leaving dark patches in the illumination field. 50 meters from her landing point, she came upon a shallow pool. Its liquid surface rippled with iridescent hues, greens, purples, and blues, reflecting her, torchlight in hypnotic patterns. At the pool's center, partially submerged and glinting in the motion, lay something metallic and unfamiliar, a circular rim formed from aged, dented mining-grade alloy. The surface of the pool shimmered, the depth seemed to absorb her light, beckoning her closer. Arya knelt at the water's edge, crouching enough to avoid dislodging the spores on her back. She studied the rim. It was roughly 2 meters across, rimmed with jagged edges that had been bent outwards as though something large inside had tried to escape. She placed her gloved fingers on the rim, feeling faint vibrations, like a distant heartbeat amplified by the rock. "I've found a containment pit," she said. "Looks like an old mining rig, salvaged for scrap but repurposed to trap something." A low hum vibrated through the metal, the energy signature flickering in quick pulses. Arya's breathing slowed as she activated her suit's magnification focus on the pit's interior. Beneath the murky water, she glimpsed a coiled mass of black scales and sinewy limbs. She swallowed hard. Even through the reflective water, she sensed the creature's intensity. Crouching lower, she muttered a quiet prayer. May it be alive. Slowly, she raised her flashlight's beam into the water. It pierced the depths briefly, revealing one long, taloned forelimb pinned beneath an energy cable that arced with crackling blue sparks. The limb twitched and the creature rumbled, a deep, resonant vibration that traveled up Arya's spine. She jolted back a step, heart pounding. The pit's rim clanged under her weight. She pressed a hand to her chest, fighting the instinct to retreat. Yet the creature, whatever it was alive but bound. The energy cables held it in a stasis field that prevented it from moving more than a few inches. Arya's HUD calculated the binding force, well over 1,000 newtons of containment energy, enough to hold an apex predator. She reached into her pack and retrieved the plasma cutter, checking its charge level, 87%. She glanced around, ensuring nothing else lurked in the shadows, then knelt at the pit's edge a second time, her suit's integrated lights illuminating the alien of unknown origin. Crouching low, she placed the plasma cutter's tip against the energy cable nearest her. The cable's surface pulsed, but the cutter's arc licked the binding, cutting through the material in a sizzling hiss. Sparks and blue plasma smoke surged upward, as though the cable resisted the blade. Arya held her breath, steadying the cutter against the cable. Once the binding weakened, it splintered, and the stasis field around the beast flickered. The moment the cable ruptured completely, the field collapsed with a thunderous crack, and the beast convulsed violently. Arya leaped backward as the creature's forelimb shot up, freeing itself. The pit rumbled in protest, metal buckling under. The strain. Water from the pool surged outward. For a heartbeat, the predator simply writhed in agony, its tail thrashing the pool's surface into a froth. Then it reared up, its full form rising above the rim of the pit, 2 meters tall, arching back on powerful hind legs. Its carapace was a deep, obsidian black, segmented in sinewy plates that caught the phosphorescent light. From its torso sprouted 4 limbs, 2 hulking hind legs and 2 long muscular forelimbs ending in serrated talons, each nearly a meter from knuckle to tip. Its head was a crowning enigma, an obsidian dome framed by whip-like tendrils that writhed like serpents. Each tendril bore clusters of sensory pads quivering as though tasting the air. Most unsettling of all were its eyes, sapphire blue orbs that glowed with an unfathomable intelligence. Arya's breath caught. Even bound, the beast's presence dominated the chamber. The temperature dropped several degrees as if the creature absorbed heat, Its chest heaved with bated breaths, lungs that inhaled with purpose. It hissed through slitted mandibles, a sound that carried both pain and fury. The beast's gaze snapped to Arya. Her helmet sensors recorded a massive spike in its neural activity, curiosity laced with primal aggression. She raised her hands slowly, palm outward, a universal sign of peace. "Easy," she whispered, voice trembling. The creature hissed again, the prisms of light dancing in its eyes. For a moment, time froze, predator and rescuer locked in suspended tension. Arya's mind raced. She needed to free it entirely, yet cautioned every step. She tapped her console to rewire the plasma cutter's output, adjusting the energy frequency to match the cable's current type. Another cable, thicker this time, arced with electricity. She repositioned the cutter's tip at the narrowest point, ignited the arc, and guided the blade through. As the cable splintered, the last remnants of the stasis field collapsed in on themselves. The beast roared, a deafening wave of sound that rattled the canyon walls. It slammed both forelimbs against the pit's rim, sending shards of molten metal clattering down onto the rocks at its sides. Arya flinched at the blast of heat. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering so hard she feared it would rupture her chest plate. Yet despite the tumult, the beast did not attack. Instead, it balanced on its hind legs, scanning the chamber, nostrils flaring. Its gape exposed rows of blade-like teeth. The tentacles on its head ended in small clusters of eyes themselves, an almost grotesque redundancy of vision that made her shiver. It sniffed, then dropped low, testing its limbs. Slowly, its four limbs extended fully, and it flexed each joint, a silent demonstration of power. The beast's gaze shifted back to Arya. She sensed its awareness probe her mind, questioning her intentions. The sapphire glow of its eyes softened, and it emitted a low, vibrating rumble. Part greeting, part demand. Arya took a cautious step forward. "I'm Arya Voss," she murmured. "I freed you." Her voice quivered, but she held it steady. The beast's tendrils twitched in response, lifting and falling like watchful serpents. It tilted its head as if registering the sound of her voice, cataloging the vibrations. A dribble of phosphorescent water dripped from its snout. Arya's suit sensors analyzed its metabolism. High adrenaline levels, rapid respiration, but also signs of shock. It was not just a predator. It was intelligent, sentient even. She had freed a mind that could learn, plan, and adapt. She extended her hand, tentatively. The beast's eyes widened, an almost human expression. It inched forward, its taloned toes clicking softly on the pit floor. When its serpentine tendrils reached the edge, it paused. Arya felt a jolt of adrenaline. Was it about to lash out? Instead, one tendril drifted lower, brushing lightly against her helmet. The contact was feather-light, a gentle tap that sent a shiver down her spine. The creature drew back and reared again, this time drawing its torso entirely out of the pit. Once its hind legs scraped the rim, it leapt down onto the rocky floor, landing in a crouch that radiated deadly power. Arya stumbled backward, forgetting caution for a moment as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She expected a feral rush, fanged jaws, the immediate taste of violence. But instead, the creature froze, nostrils flaring. Its head sank low to the ground, and it released a short, resonant purr, a vibration that traveled through Arya's boots into her core. Confusion warred with relief in her mind. She exhaled, chest heaving beneath her suit. "You're free," she said simply. The beast lifted its head. For a heartbeat, the world felt suspended, canyon mist curling around them, phosphorescent spores drifting in the pool's glow, the faint hum of wind far above. Then, with a single fluid motion, the predator turned and leapt away from her, vanishing into the twisting network of tunnels that snaked deeper into the canyon. Each bound was silent, feathers of shadow, until it disappeared entirely from sight. Arya stood alone in the pool's dim luminescence, the canyon echoing with the fading reverberations of its departure. She swallowed hard, lowering her plasma. Cutter. In the pit's ruined rim, fragments of shattered cable lay smoldering. Her suit's HUD mapped the beast's retreat path, decaying quickly into a tunnel's black maw. She crouched, gently touching the water's surface, rippling the tinted glow. Her reflection wavered, her comm crackled. "Dr. Voss, are you all right?" Commander Iris Veidal's voice came through, tense. "We read the collapse of the stasis field. Report." Arya's voice trembled with both wonder and disquiet. "It's alive, and it's unlike anything we've recorded. I freed it. It let me live." Silence followed. Then, in Iris's measured tones, "We need samples and a live capture. Extraction team is en route. Hold your position." The line went dead. Arya stared at her HUD, which now tracked the extraction shuttle's ETA, 15 minutes and counting. She realized the stakes had shifted. She had found a new apex predator, one capable of extraordinary intelligence and power. Yet it had shown her unexpected mercy. A torrential mix of relief, fear, and curiosity surged through her. She understood, deep in her bones, that her decision today would ripple through the frontier's future. As Arya Voss rose to her feet, steadying herself on the canyon's cold stone, a low rumble echoed from the tunnels. She blinked, shining her torch into the darkness. The phosphorescent spores clustered in the shadows flickered, as though responding to unseen footsteps. Her breath caught. The predator had not gone far. Somewhere beyond the reach of her light, its sapphire eyes watched. And in those depths, Arya felt the undeniable truth. She had cast the die, and fate now hinged on the bond between rescuer and rescued. The canyon floor settled into stillness, but the echoes below held a promise of what was to come. A predator, once bound, now free, and a xenobiologist who had unwittingly forged a connection that neither fully understood. As the twin suns began their descent toward the horizon, Arya took one last look into the yawning pitch of the ravine. The beast's footprints, giant taloned imprints, led away into the darkness. She allowed herself a moment to hope that her act of mercy would not be her undoing. Then, steeling her resolve, she turned and retraced her steps toward the extraction point, determined to catalog every detail before her time and her choices caught up with her. Arya Voss's heart hammered as she ascended the narrow switchbacks that led from the canyon floor to the extraction point. She had spent nearly 10 minutes retracing her path, careful not to disturb the bioluminescent spores underfoot. Each phosphorescent glow flickered like watchful eyes in the dim light, reminding her that she was not alone. She glanced back once, scanning the tunnels where the predator had vanished. No sign of it, yet she felt its presence, an unseen weight in the shadows, like a silent promise. Her exoshell suit's comm crackled. "Dr. Voss," Commander Iris Veidal's voice came through, terse and clipped. "Do you have a visual on the shuttle?" "Almost. There," Arya replied, though her voice wavered. She tightened her grip on the grav-hook rail, her gloves slick with sweat. The canyon's walls here rose in jagged tiers 15 meters above her head, offering little cover from any angle. She could feel the sun's glare retreating across the rim as they dipped toward the horizon, leaving a violet dusk in their wake. The temperature had dropped 10 degrees since she'd freed the predator. Now the air felt frigid, each breath forming vapor in her helmet. "Proceed with caution," Iris warned. "Extraction ETA is 6 minutes. We've initiated a site sweep for hostile signatures. Stand by." Arya acknowledged, but only half heard. Her focus was on the predator, on the bond she had forged in the pit. She felt his absence as acutely as she felt her own pulse. Her mind replayed the moment it had crouched before her, its carapace exuding warmth despite the chill that seeped into her bones. She had expected fury, or at least instinctive hostility. Instead, it had let her live. In that instant, Arya understood that she had unleashed something far more complex than a mere beast. She had freed a sentient power that now, whether she liked it or not, owed her a debt. A gust of wind rattled the canyon walls. Her comm crackled again. "Dr. Voss, inbound comm unit detected. multiple targets, armed. Iris's voice was grave. They're not federal. We weren't expecting ground teams. Watch your sector. Arya froze. Ground teams? Someone else was here. She advanced carefully, hugging the scarred rock face. The first telltale sign came in the form of faint mechanical clicks, the sound of servos under strain. Scraps of movement flickered past her peripheral vision, shadows that did not belong to the canyon walls. Arya's visor HUD flagged thermal, signatures. 3 individuals huddled behind a sprawl of basalt boulders, each clad in black combat exosuits. Their pulse rifles rested against their forearms. Runic, cluster-like scopes glowed red as they zeroed in on her form. Arya's throat went dry. Command, be advised, I've visual on hostiles, 3 armed, they're blocking my path. She scanned for an alternate route, but the path narrowed to a choke point, a ledge barely a meter wide. No escape. She took a steadying breath. Stand. By, she whispered. I need a new approach. The canyon floor rumbled as if on cue. Arya felt the vibrations through her boots. She looked back at the fissure where the predator had disappeared. Had it returned, or was the quake natural? The ledge beneath her toes shivered. Dr. Voss, Iris's voice snapped. Sit tight. We're redirecting the shuttle. Hold position. Then the line went dead. Communications cut. Arya realized she was on her own. She advanced slowly toward the choke point. Her plasma cutter, still holstered at her hip, hummed quietly. Each step kicked up dust motes that swirled in the deepening gloom. With 20 meters to close, she raised a gloved hand in a placating gesture and spoke, voice low but steady. I'm not your enemy. I was here on a rescue mission. A soldier stepped out from behind the boulder, rifle leveled. The red dot from his scope danced across her chest plate. We know who you are, Doctor. His voice crackled through his helmet's comm. Step aside and let us pass. We've been instructed to retrieve a Y-class specimen. You freed it. Now stand down. Arya's pulse raced. I can't let you capture it. Whatever you want, it isn't. Shut it. Another soldier growled. He stepped to his comrade's side. Rifle trained. Orders are orders. Retrieving the specimen is priority. You're collateral. Their boots scraped the sandstone. Arya's mind swirled. Was this a private mercenary outfit? A rogue Federation cell? None of it mattered. They outnumbered her, and her exoshell was no match for pulse rifles at close. Singe. Her eyes shifted to the ceiling of the ravine. A ledge 5 meters overhead led around the choke point to the west. If she could reach it, she could bypass the soldiers and circle back. She hefted her grav hook. I don't want trouble, she called, but I can't let you take it alive. He smiled with predatory assurance. Neither do we, Doctor, but that doesn't change the mission. Arya sprinted the remaining distance, plasma cutter drawn in her right hand. She planted her grav hook's anchor into a fissure overhead and engaged the winch. Her suit strained as it hoisted her upward. The soldiers opened fire, bright pulses shredding the rock beside her. Shards sprayed toward her, but she twisted mid-gun hanging from the tether. A cascade of pebble-sized debris rattled her helmet. She exhaled, heart thrumming. 10 meters high, she reached the ledge and scrambled over the lip, grappling herself to safety. The soldiers cursed and raised their rifles, but the ledge was too narrow for them to follow quickly. Arya's suit sensors detected them below, agitating, clawing at the rock face for a better shot. She crept forward, clutching her plasma cutter like a lifeline until the ledge broadened into a natural alcove. She crouched, peering down through a break in the stone. Below, the soldiers had regrouped, scanning for thermal signatures, but Arya's silhouette was obscured by shadow. She exhaled, letting adrenaline ease. The problem remained. She needed to reach her shuttle. Fast. Her HUD tracked the shuttle beacon. 2 minutes to arrival near a makeshift landing zone 30 meters west. The ridge she now occupied sloped sharply down to a secondary ledge that cut around the choke point. If she descended, she could cross the ravine floor and sprint for the shuttle, but the soldiers would hear her descent. She weighed her options, face them head-on with only her plasma cutter, or slip through the shadows, risking a missed step in the dark. She knew her boots could grip most basalt, but if she fell, no. The decision was made for her as a low, resonant growl reverberated through the alcove. Arya's blood ran cold. The predator. She knelt, her breath caught in her throat. In the darkness, two sapphire blue eyes flickered at her from a narrow ledge 15 meters above, partially hidden behind a fallen boulder. Its whip-like tendrils wrapped around the rock, balancing a massive, segmented torso. The beast's 4 limbs flexed, muscles coiling like loaded springs. For a moment, Arya's heart soared. The predator had returned just as she hoped. Below, the soldiers were oblivious, calling orders into their comms, scanning heat maps for alternate routes. Quiet as a ghost, the predator dropped from its perch, landing in a crouch on the ravine, floor 10 meters behind the soldiers. Its landing echoed like a muffled drumbeat. Then, as if by some silent signal, the predator sprang into action. Its forelimbs shot out first, serrated talons sinking into the armor of the soldier on the left. The man screamed as his suit's sensors fried under the pressure. The predator pivoted, its talons carving through reinforced plating as though it were paper. The second soldier spun, trying to aim, but the predator's whip-like tendrils lashed at his weapon, yanking it from his grasp and hurling it into the canyon wall. The third soldier raised his rifle toward where Arya knelt, but the predator's hind leg struck him in the knee with a thunderous crack, shattering the joint and sending him crashing face-first to the ground. Arya watched, transfixed and horrified. The beast moved with balletic precision, each strike calculated to disable its opponents. It let no one escape to warn others. Its movements were silent until the moment of impact, when its talons raked through armor with a crunch like bending steel. The 2 surviving soldiers tried to retreat, firing blindly into the darkness. Pulses of energy hewed deep gouges into the basalt, but the predator twisted its body around the blasts, shrugging off energy bolt after energy bolt. The red glow of their scopes reflected grotesquely on its obsidian carapace. Within 15 seconds, the soldiers lay broken and still. One's throat torn, another's helmet crushed under a clawed strike, the third's spine snapped by a sudden lift of its forelimb. The canyon floor fell silent, save for a low, guttural rumble as the predator exhaled. Its sapphire eyes flicked upward, meeting Arya's through the gap in the rock. Terror and relief warred within her. She raised a hand, trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. The predator's mandibles clicked once in acknowledgement, then its gaze shifted toward the choke point where she had first faced them. Its body coiled, as if poised to leap. But Arya shook her head, stepping forward. No more. For a moment, the beast hesitated, head tilting as though weighing her command. Then it turned, retreating back into the tunnels it had emerged from, leaving Arya alone among shattered armor and smoking rivulets of dissolving energy fields. The canyon's silence settled over the carnage like a shroud. Arya knelt, expelling breath she hadn't realized she'd held. Her suit's sensors registered elevated adrenaline levels, minor suit breaches from falling debris, and, most concerning, seismic tremors beneath her boots. She staggered to her feet. A fissure was forming in the ravine floor. Minutes earlier, her console had signaled low-level seismic disturbances, likely aftershocks from the creature's violent escape. Now the ground beneath her quivered as though something massive stirred below. She looked uphill. The choke point led to a narrow pass carved into the canyon wall, but already the stone there was fracturing, tiny pebbles rattling loose. To her, west, a secondary ledge appeared the only viable route to the shuttle. But that too was unstable. The tremors intensified, like the growl of a buried leviathan waking. Then came the snap. A long fissure cracked across the ravine floor 20 meters below. Dust and debris erupted upward. The ground bulged toward her. Instinct seized Arya. She turned and scrambled toward the western ledge. She felt the canyon walls groan, as if straining against an invisible weight. Above, a massive sliver of basalt peeled away, clattering in slow motion toward the chasm. She reached the ledge's edge and paused, 5 meters down to the floor, which was now shifting like an alive creature. Ahead lay a narrow spit of stone leading to a final rise where the shuttle would be waiting. She exhaled, heart pounding. One misstep, and she'd plunge into the abyss. A thunderous crack sounded from the back of the ravine. She dared a glance. The predator emerged from its hiding place, standing at the brink of the fissure as if keeping watch. Its eyes, once sapphire blue, were now a wash of molten orange reflecting the fractured stone. It faced the source of the seismic pulse, a colossal block of stone already yawning with fracture lines. The weight of it suggested immediate collapse. The predator's reverberating growl seemed a silent command. Go. Arya hesitated only a heartbeat, then sprinted across the narrow spit of stone. Each step was a gamble. Rocks slid under her. Boots, the ledge crumbling behind her. She vaulted toward the final rise. Her hands scraped the rough basalt as she heaved herself upward. The tremors rattled her sense of balance. Behind her, the canyon floor quaked, then split open in a roar of jagged rock. The massive slab she had seen above the predator snapped free and slammed down into the chasm, crashing where Arya had just stood moments earlier. A shockwave pulsed upward, knocking her off her feet. She slid on the dusty ledge, body collapsing, against the rough stone. Dazed, she looked up through the haze. The predator crouched 20 meters away, watching her with unblinking intent. Its four limbs flexed. The fissure beneath its feet widened, but it remained perfectly still. A tremor swallowed the ledge, so fierce that Arya feared the stone would give way. She scrambled to her feet, stumbling as rocks cascaded past her. The beast, however, shifted without hesitation. With a single fluid motion it bounded toward her, covering the distance in 5 strides. Its hind legs coiled, launching it skyward, its forelimbs shot forward. It landed beside Arya, its bulk an armored shield between her and the fissure. Arya's breath caught. The ledge on her side buckled, stones vibrating like drumheads. The predator's talons dug into the fractured rock. It braced its massive shoulders against the tremors as though absorbing the force. Then, with a titanic shove, it heaved Arya across the remaining half-meter distance to solid ground. She tumbled forward, her suit's impact dampeners engaging to save her fractured ribcage, but only just. She lay there, gasping, watching as the ledge she had stood on moments before imploded into the yawning abyss. A final shudder shook the ravine. The predator, still straddling the collapse's edge, jolted as rocks crumbled beneath it. Arya scrambled backward until her boots found stable ground. She rose unsteadily, sliding a shaky hand down to brush a rivulet of blood leaking from the side of her helmet visor. Her suit's sensors told her skull was unharmed, but her heart pounded so fiercely it felt like it would burst through her rib cage. The predator knelt, settling its massive forelimbs onto the rock. It cast her a glance, an inscrutable expression beneath tendrils and mandibles. Then, as though satisfied she was safe, it reared back and retreated into the black maw of the tunnel behind it. Its long tail, like a segmented whip, lashed the canyon floor in a final gesture, a silent promise of protection. Alone on the rubble-strewn rise, Arya exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She raised a trembling hand in farewell. "Thank you," she whispered. The tunnels echoed with the predator's fading rumble, a sound like distant thunder. The shuttle arrived moments later, its thrusters kicking up a halo of red dust that glowed in the setting sun's last light. The pilot, eyes wide behind his visor, peered down at her. Arya waved him off as she staggered toward the edge. He landed in a cloud of dust, the shuttle's hatch hissing open. She collapsed inside and he sealed the door before she even fell into the seat. "Dr. Voss," he said over the roar of the engines, voice trembling. "Are you all right? What happened down there?" Arya sank into the harness, pressing a hand to her side. "The shuttle's damaged," she rasped, "and I freed something in those tunnels, something that saved my life." Her voice cracked. She turned her head, peering out through the hatch's reinforced glass. Below, the canyon was a field of fresh rubble and yawning fissures, an entirely new crater where the ravine had been. The pilot's eyes widened. "My God, She tapped her wrist console, sending a grainy hollow message to Federation Command. To Federation High Command, from Dr. Arya Voss, Orion Reach Frontier. Subject, Specimen Y01. The Y-class predator referred to as Y01 is uncontrollable by conventional protocols. It exhibits heightened intelligence and a profound loyalty to me, its rescuer. Y01 has neutralized hostiles with extreme prejudice and prevented my capture. I cannot guarantee its behavior will remain benign toward federal personnel. Recommend immediate cessation of ground operations in Sector Gaialith 3C. Future engagement. Must proceed with extreme caution or not at all. She pressed send. The hollow message flickered out of view. The pilot stared at her, expression unreadable. Then the shuttle lifted, engines flaring as it angled away from the canyon rim. Red dust spiraled behind them, catching the last rays of the twin suns as they slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in swirls of violet and orange. Inside the shuttle's cramped cabin, Arya closed her eyes and pressed her fingers to her temple. The rhythmic thrum of the thrusters a distant heartbeat. She tasted blood in her mouth, felt exhaustion tug at her limbs. But above all, she felt a thrill of something darker entwined with relief. The knowledge that she had sparked a bond between herself and Y01. He had killed for her, without hesitation, and he would do so again if she asked. In the fading light, beyond the viewport, the canyon lay silent. Steam rose from the fissures like ghostly pillars. Somewhere in the darkness, the predator waited, perched atop a rim of shattered stone. Sapphire eyes glowed in the gloom, then shifted to molten orange. As embers of dust drifted past, it lowered its head in a silent vow, tendrils flicking once, a gesture of allegiance. Arya Voss exhaled, feeling the weight of her choices settle on her chest. She pressed a hand to her wounded side, drawing back her visor to survey the swirling night. Through the glass, she could still see the glint of Y01's carapace, immovable, regal, unwavering. She straightened in her seat, resolve solidifying in her gaze. Whatever the consequence, her fate now lay entwined with the predator she had released. She had given him life. He had pledged his sword to her cause. The shuttle climbed into the violet sky, carrying her away from Gaialith's shattered canyon. But in her chest burned a certainty. The frontier had changed. And as long as she drew breath, neither she nor Y01 would forgive or forget what had transpired in the echoes below.